Welcome to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. I'm Richie. I'm going to be your host. Throughout the series, we're going to talk to a range of different people who will give you tools and tips to help manage your recovery. The podcast itself is being brought to you by Epic Restart Foundation, who are a national charity who support people to rebuild a positive life after gambling harm.
So today on the Recovery Toolkit podcast, we have the man himself, Richie Paxton. And I'm actually really excited to do this because you do this over and over, and there are little bits that you share about yourself. But every time I work with you, I learn something new about you. So I'm quite excited to see kind of what comes up. So good morning.
Yeah, you've kind of built the anticipation now, Stacey. Cheers for that. The expectation has now gone through the roof.
No, do you know what? You have an amazing story, and I genuinely mean it. And you something I learned from you as well was that you don't use that first. It's not all about Richie all the time. It's letting people have that space. So I'm really excited to kind of see what comes up. So I want to say, tell us about you. Tell us about Richie.
Been a journey, if I'm honest, Stacey. Through my childhood and stuff, football was always a big passion, and lucky enough that I left school and was able to play football at a professional club for a while. Got injured and stuff, that didn't work out. And at that point, I didn't know how to deal with emotions, didn't know how to deal with my feelings, and found the boogies, basically. Went into boogies. And that for me was like just a complete escape. I would go in there and nothing else mattered, all responsibility out the window. And that was from quite a young age. Through my 20s and stuff, it obviously spiraled out of control. And so did the use of alcohol and drugs and stuff as well. Recreational to start with, but in the end, it was all of the same, all much of the same. I didn't know it at the time, but through my 20s, I alcohol abuse, basically, cocaine usage went ridiculous. And I can honestly say from being about 27, 28 to going into rehab, there wasn't a day in my life that I didn't drink, use cocaine, or gamble. Like, do one of them three things. I didn't always do all three, but I didn't get through a day without doing one of them. And for me, that was, looking back in hindsight, that was Richie saying, I didn't have a problem. I still had a job, I still functioned, I still done everything in life that you're supposed to do, but I was broken. On the inside, I was a mess. Everybody on the outside thought I was successful. Everybody on the outside thought, I worked in the health and wellbeing industry. I was a personal trainer. I ran exercise classes. I ran boot camps. I ran personal training. I ran anything to do with health and wellbeing. Richie was running it. Yeah, he was an absolute mess, and going home on a night, I would really struggle with feelings, emotions. Didn't have people that I could talk to. I had loads of people in my life, loads and loads of people, hundreds of people, and I was lonely. I was isolated, and I really struggled to just be me. And that was the thing that I kind of hid behind this persona of Richie's successful, and all of in hindsight, what I've learned from all of that was me trying to validate my existence. That was me trying to prove that I was worthy. That was me having zero confidence or self-belief or understanding about who I really was. That was me trying to, put a facade on out there to the world and say, I've got my shit together and I'm really good. And actually, I wasn't. That's the truth of the matter. I really wasn't. At 28, my first son was born, and I thought that would be a changing point for me. But 10 years before that, I'd lost a little boy called Dylan, and that was a real catalyst for me. Because ever since then, I wanted a kid, I wanted a child, and at 28, Theo come along, and I thought that would be the changing point. I would get my shit together because I would step up to the plate and become dad, and the complete opposite happened. And I was like, how the fuck can I look after a child when I can't even look after myself? And that was a big moment for me. And my relationship was falling apart. Well, it fell apart. And I was just a bit of a twat, and that's what I look back and I can honestly say I was very much so. And it was difficult. Life was really difficult. But it was all my own doing. But I only done what I knew what to do. And that was run away. And I was running away from feelings, running away from emotions, running away from difficult situations, not facing stuff that I needed to face. And all of that fed into Richie's not worthy. Richie's got no confidence. Richie's got lower self-esteem. And it was really difficult. At that point, the drugs and alcohol started becoming much more of a problem, although I didn't see it at the time. Gambling was always the only problem I had. And it wasn't gambling that was a problem. It was Richie's head was the problem. Gambling was the solution. Alcohol became the solution. Cocaine became the solution, because when I'd done any of those things, I didn't have to be Richie, you know. And I always talk about little Richie, and that's like the little child that's within us, you know, the inner child in us. And he was broken, him, you know. And luckily now I sit here today and I have a different life. But there's still a bit of that broken child in us, you know, and that's, a lot of people don't see that. And a lot of people think, you know, again, see success, see as hosting podcasts, see as doing really well at work and, you know, got good circles of friends and doing lots of really good stuff in life. And loads of people say, oh God, you've totally changed that. I'm like, yeah, I have. But there's still days when I'm broken. There's still days on the inside when I just think, this is tough, you know, so... Luckily, I don't have to cope. I don't have the coping strategies that I used to have. I don't need them things, but I do have other things now. You know, I have so many other coping strategies, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. But for me, it's just recognizing that what people see isn't always 100% the truth. And I think that's important for people to hear.
Yeah, 100%. I think something that really I picked up on was this wanting this image of success. And you said that came from businesses, that came from doing new things, that came from building things up, maybe money, financially, things were working. So, but you still didn't feel it in yourself like a success. So what does success mean to you? Or for maybe anybody kind of in this space actually chasing, what is it to feel successful? What is it that makes you feel successful?
So my version of success now is content. That, you know, and success can be many different things to many different people, but for me, it's about being at peace and being content. You know, I will always strive to be better. That's ultimately for me, you know, and success is, am I making progress? You know, and I always talk about building the evidence. Like, I need to build the evidence that I'm being successful. So, you know, if I look back in a journal from 2 years ago, it'll show success. You know, it'll show that I've made progress. It'll show that I'm moving forward in life. That's okay. Like, that's success for me. Success used to be for me the external things. That's what success would be. You know, it was anything that was on the outside that people could see. So the job title, the business, you know, how many personal training clients I had, how many people turned up to a boot camp, numbers, figures, you know. All of these things would be success, you know, and or what I thought was success. But actually, internally, I was broken, you know, and success on the outside of the world really wasn't success to Richie. I can honestly sit here and say now that success to me is being at peace with myself, you know, and that's sometimes not easy and isn't always the case. But for me today, if I can be content with where I'm at, I have a chance of making progress and moving forward. If I'm not happy with where I'm at now, I'm probably not going to be happy even if I move forward anyway. So it's about being at peace with where I am now, being content with where I am now, and that allows us for growth, that allows room for growth, but actually not being scared of what you might find out, not being scared of potentially finding unearthing something new inside us, because I know I can cope with it now. And I think that's success for me, is knowing no matter what shit life throws at us today, I'll be okay and I'll get through it. I'll find a way.
And it comes back to something I think that we talk about, which is the private victories. And I know that we spoke about this kind of before, but for me, that's success as well, is not the stuff, exactly as you said, not everything that's on the outside that everyone can see, but sitting at home and going to bed and feel comfortable, and that's everything. And I think just people knowing that, do you know what, that success is getting through every day and coping in a better way than maybe you used to. That is success, instead of kind of chasing, like you say, the numbers are massive. I don't know if it's a specifically a gambling thing, but we tend to have this association with kind of numbers constantly and reaching numbers and targets, and that's where we're successful. So it's so nice to just know that, do you know what, you're doing all right if you're going to bed and you're sleeping at night. That's a success.
Yeah, 100%. I think something I stopped doing was counting like days and years in recovery, and that was a number, you know, and that became a big thing for me. Was like, if I can remove numbers, then them types of numbers anyway, then my success isn't defined on how many days I've been in recovery. My success isn't defined on how many years I've been in recovery. My success is defined on, how has Richie been today? You know, just today. Have I been a twat? No. Okay, then I'm doing all right, you know. Have I acted out? If I have acted out, have I took ownership of it? And have I put my hands up and said sorry?
Yeah.
Have I changed the way, you know, that I behave? You know, and I'm human, you know. There's still times when I can act out and not do things that I'm proud of. But actually, can I hold my hands up and, you know, apologize to myself and potentially other people, and forgive myself and allow myself the grace? And I think that comes from being able to show myself compassion now, where I used to be the most super critical person of myself ever, you know, and something that I've had to learn in recovery is compassion. Compassion for yourself, compassion for others probably is so much more beneficial than that devil that sits on my shoulder and says I'm a worthless piece of shit, you know. So giving myself a pat on the back is massively helped us in my recovery as well.
And just from a very personal note, your story is incredible, and I genuinely mean it when I say well done. Like, you spend so much time telling other people, well done, well done, well done, and like you said, that compassion to yourself, and sometimes it's hard to hear it from someone else, but well done.
Yeah,
like,
thank you.
Incredible.
I think in year one of working at Epic Restart Foundation, I met Brad Waldron, you know, and Brad challenged us massively on saying thank you, because I couldn't say thank you, you know, and people would give you praise and I'd be like, put my head down, shy away from it and all that sort of stuff. And now I just face it head on and face most things head on now, and I've just got to say thank you. That makes us feel slightly uncomfortable, but thank you for acknowledging that, you know, and taking ownership of the fact that it makes us feel uncomfortable is okay. Because once I take ownership of the fact that I feel something, I can do something about it. And that's something, again, that's massively been part of my recovery, is not just listening to things or, you know, hearing things about yourself or accepting praise or anything like that. It's about feeling. So what is it that I felt at that moment? You know, what is it that I felt when I got anxious? You know, I remember sitting in that chair doing the first podcast, and the nerves in my belly, you know, and the feeling I had in my chest. And it was like, what's all this about? But it was about acknowledging and knowing that actually it's just I'm a little bit nervous. And if I'm a bit nervous, then that also means I'm a little bit excited. And if I can reframe the nerves to excitement, then I'll probably do better. You know, I'll perform better, and it'll be a better interview for somebody else or for those listening. So how do I reframe stuff in life now is so important to me, because the inner child Richie, who is crying, you know, and is struggling still sometimes, if I let him come out and take control, my life would be very different to what it is now. So I've had to learn how to manage that. And I've just, like I said before, you know, compassion. Compassion is something that I think we all need to learn. Somebody once said, you know, if you're, so I qualified as a counsellor after a few years in recovery, and at the end of my counselling, somebody said, Richie, if you spoke to yourself half as much as you spoke to everybody else, your life would be transformed. And I was like, yeah, cool story. Like, don't believe that. But actually, that was the thing that I really had to start practicing.
And I think what an amazing thing, even when you are uncomfortable or things don't feel nice, what an amazing thing to say that you feel it. Because you said before, everything was about running away. It was about running away from feeling all the time. And my experience with gambling showed me that it numbed it. so I didn't have to feel. So even if somebody is listening and they're struggling and they hate this feeling and they turn around and go to something else, what you can achieve when you feel it, it's just an incredible thing to say that I feel.
Yeah, I think, I went into rehab, and when I come into recovery, and one of the things that was said to me in rehab was, the best thing about recovery is you get your feelings back. The worst thing about recovery is you get your feelings back. And it's true, isn't it? Because we've numbed so much of our life and avoided so many feelings and emotions because we didn't know how to deal with them. That, when I was talking earlier about Theo being born, 28-year-old Theo was born, that should have been the happiest day of my life. I couldn't feel anything, because I was shit scared. I was absolutely terrified, and now it obviously, me 2 kids are everything to us, and I'm a completely different dad to what I was in the early days, and that for me, that's progress. That's success, and that success is that I turn up for them kids, they get my undivided attention, and I'm a better role model for them. That's success in so many other different ways as well. But the inability to feel emotions, years ago when I was in active addiction, was crippling, I think, and that's something that I've got back now. It's hard sometimes because some of the emotions I don't want to feel, and some of the emotions I have to sit with. And part of my journey was into 12-step recovery, and something that I was told in 12-step recovery is you should never sit with your emotions. And I was like, really? How can you ever deal with them if you don't sit with them? And they're like, no, if you sit with your emotions for too long, you'll relapse. And I was like, all right. And I had to think about that for a long time. And that was just their version. They were fearful of being able to sit with their emotions. And that was from somebody that was further ahead of me in my recovery. So I was like, oh, well, that must be the truth, and I must do everything they say and do all these things. And what I learned was, that was just their inability to deal with their emotions. That is the reason that they said that. And I see 12-step recovery was massive for me. It gave us a safe space. It gave us a group of people that were on a similar journey, some further ahead that were a bit of role models for us, some that were coming in behind us that I could be a role model to them, and give us purpose and lots of stuff like that. In the end, it served us for a period of time, and then it stopped serving us, and I think it's okay for people to hear that rehab served us for 28 days. It served as a stepping stone into 12-step recovery, which served us for about 18 months, which served as a stepping stone for us to sign up and do a counselling degree, which served us for another 18 months, which served us for that period of time until I started working with different coaches. And them coaches taught us about stuff, which then served us for a period of time until I took a step into the gambling harm space and working at Epic. And I could go on and on and on. All these different parts just served us for periods of time. I don't think you have to get stuck. Yeah. I have to do this forever. That's a scary place, or a scary thing to say is I've got to do this forever. I've just got to do this for a day because this is what's working for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I've worked with a few people now who've kind of said, I can't make my meetings. I'm really scared. I'm like, what is it you get from them meetings? What is it that you get? And we look at it and it's actually, do you know what? I really like the people. I really like the social interaction. Okay, where else can we look to put that in your life? Because actually, by not attending a meeting, that doesn't mean that you're going to have this huge relapse. It means that there's it served you well. It's done something for you. You know what you're looking for within there. But for me, it's about going and living your life. Yeah. And using those things that help in that time, exactly as you said, and growing with them and using what is right for you. And there is, I think, some culture about it being so strict, recovery. Recovery is not. We say it all the time, what did you do this for? What did you go into recovery for? What did you go through rehab for? And it was to live a life that you love.
Yeah, totally. Get your life back, isn't it? I think that's what we pride ourselves on at Epic, is giving people the opportunity to go and live again. And we've got to be the example we want to see in others is one of my biggest values, and I've got to go and do that. But I've also got to show vulnerability, and I've got to show that it's real, and you know, that it's not straightforward and plain sailing all the time.
And I think that that's kind of an important part, and I want to move on to kind of people do see you as you do a podcast, you got amazing recovery, you do all these things, and you're an absolute inspiration. You really, truly are, and I continue learning from you. But is it still hard? Is recovery still easy at this point?
No, some days, yeah. Sitting right here, right now, dead easy. You know, it's dead easy. You know, I was asked a question last week by one of my friends. What I would say as well, before I move on to this, I talk about 12-step recovery serving us for 18 months. What I've done was I met loads of people in 12-step recovery that I still speak to today. So although I don't attend a meeting, I still speak to another individual that's in recovery. So that's a meeting, because it's two people that are talking to each other who are both on a similar journey. So that's a meeting for me. Yeah. So will I do that for the rest of my life? Potentially, because I've got good people around us now. And that's what I got. So don't feel like you have to turn up at 6 o'clock on a Monday night to that meeting, when actually you could ring somebody on a Thursday morning at 10:30 and have a conversation with them, and that could be the meeting. You know, so that's my perception of how recovery can work, and that you don't have to be tied to anything in particular, but actually what you'll find is you find your own way of moving through and working.
I think what you can see when you say that is that you love those conversations, you love those people, you love that part of your life, and that is still serving you now, and it is still helping you, and it's still part of that. Do you know what? If you get into a point where you're thinking, I really don't want to go to this meeting, I really don't enjoy it, I really don't like it, how else can you get what you were getting from that meeting? And that's exactly what you've done. And I think it's so important for people to hear, because we can end up, we've said it before, addicted to recovery. Yeah,
100%.
Addicted to, must be this time, this place, this person.
And do you know what it is for me, though? It's avoidance. It's still avoidance. It's if I turn up there, I don't have to do the work. I don't have to sit in the house and look in the mirror and sit in my own feelings and emotions and not act out. I go there and I just avoid. Something else that helped me avoid in my recovery was learning. You know, I'm learning new things about myself. I'm learning. I'm doing a course. I'm doing a degree. I'm going here. I'm going there. All I'm doing is avoiding doing the work, you know. And it was about, well, actually, how can I stop learning and start implementing? How can I start taking action with some of the stuff that I'm learning? Because that's the bit that's going to change your life, is by taking action, is by behaviour change. And that's what I really pride our program on, is around that behaviour change aspect of recovery. And it's not just about saying I'm going to do something. It's about saying you're going to do it, creating a plan, and somebody holding you accountable for it. Yeah. And that's behaviour change. And that's what I think is the bit of rebuilding a positive life. That's how you do it. But going back to your question about is every day easy for me, because people see us doing really well. I was asked a question last week, and it was, how's your mental health? And like, I was going to put the usual, yeah, I'm all good, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of lads had showed a bit of vulnerability and said, I've struggled a little bit. You know, a lot of us done the marathon together not so long ago, and a few people struggled out the back of it. You know, we call it, you know, post-event blues, don't we, at Epic, and people come on events. And it was the same for us with the marathon. You know, you do the marathon that you've trained for, and then you stop running for a little bit, you get sick of that, and you stop doing stuff. And the question was, how's your mental health? And I was like, do you know what it is? I've struggled massively. Work's consumed us. Work's massively consumed us, because I allowed it to, because I wanted that distraction from sitting and dealing with actually what was going on for Richie. I didn't want to run, I didn't want to exercise, I didn't want to eat healthily. What else can I do? I know, I'll just consume myself and work, you know. And then, well, you know, I'm one of them people where, like, if I want to go all in, I'll go all in, and I can do 14 hours a day, no problem. And I can do that for weeks and weeks and weeks, until some day comes along, bites you on the arse. Yeah. And then you go and you crash. So somebody asking us that question made us really reflect on me behaviour, you know. And I can honestly say over the past month and a half, the way I've spoke to my mother has changed, you know. I'd started being a twat with my mum again. I'd started, you know, not giving as much time and attention to the kids, so I wasn't as present with the kids as much. I'd started, you know, isolating myself a little bit, cutting myself off from some of the guys, some of the support network. Found that certain people were saying certain things and it was really irritating us, and I wanted to like jump in and fight the fight. And they're all signs that actually Richie isn't as good as he might think or the world might think. And it was a real good question because it really put us into action again. Yeah. It was about going, right, it raised my self-awareness of how I'd been over the past month and how can I now do something about it and make progress again. How can I actually start implementing a plan? How can I, start doing the things that I said I'm going to do and not just giving people lip service, So first place, setting boundaries, putting more boundaries back in place, boundaries around work. When am I going to work? When am I not going to work? How many hours am I doing? How many hours am I not doing? Relationships, what time am I giving to my relationships? What time am I giving to the kids? How am I going to talk to my parents? How am I going to talk to my family? Because they still get the brunt of Richie. Yeah. They're the ones I love the most, but they sometimes get the worst version of, and that's because of that tie of how close we can be. And it's difficult sometimes because sometimes you need a release. Sometimes you just need to tell someone to fuck off. Do you know what I mean? You just need to say that to somebody and you need to find ways of doing it.
I think it's so important, so important to remember that before recovery, before we are people who struggle with addiction, before we're people in recovery, we are human, and a bad day is okay. A bad couple of days is okay. But it's when it's, okay, these bad habits, this is going on for a little bit longer, and then something to trigger, like you said, that mindset of actually, am I doing okay? Am I all right? And then the doing. What do you do to get out of that? Bad couple days, absolutely fine. How long is that going on for, and at what point do you step in? But that's because we're human, not because we struggled with addiction.
You might be human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what I think it might be, but it's some people really think that their recovery is not in a good place because they're having a shitty day. I'm like, had I had a gambling addiction or not, chances are I'm still going to have had a shitty day.
Yeah, 100%. I think everybody is going to have good days, bad days, and different days. It's about learning to manage them, isn't it? Yeah. Having a bad day and doing nothing is a really good day, really. Because having a bad day in the past would have been chaotic as fuck. And I think that's the difference now is I can have bad days. And I probably had not a bad few weeks, but things changed over a period of a few weeks where I hadn't dealt with some stuff, and that manifested into other things, and it affected, like, say, relationships and the way I speak to people and all that. But then you get the awareness back of, oh yeah, that's happening. What can I do about it, and how can I change it? But still, through all of that, I wasn't a complete and utter twat, And I think that's the most important thing is, yeah, things weren't as good as they could have been. And things haven't been as good as they could have been, but actually I've still spoke to people. I've still been open and honest. There's still times when I wanted to say I was all right, but I didn't, So I took a different course of action, and I'd done something slightly different, which has actually got us back in a really good place. Really good place. And I laugh because even when I'm in a really good place, I can still have thoughts, emotions, feelings where I go, I'm going to burn this to ground. This is a really good place I've got myself in, and this, whether it be my job, me friendship circles, relationships with kids and family and all that sort of stuff, I can still have them moments where I go, let's just burn this to the ground and start again with something else, and that's okay. The difference is now I don't burn it to the ground. Yeah. In the past, I would have just done it. I wouldn't even have had that thought. I would have just acted, and that would have been the end of it. And I would have been wallowing in self-pity for a few weeks because I'd done something rash or, made a shit decision or something like that. And I don't have to do that now. I can sit and I can process, and I can pick up the phone and I can ring people, and they call me out on my bullshit. And that's what I think I've got now, where I've probably never had in my life previously, is good, honest, reliable people who call us out on me bullshit. Don't accept a poor version of Richie, and if they see a poor version of Richie, they'll ask us why is the poor version of Richie showing up, and that's really important to me to have.
Yeah, and again, those people like you just trust enough. We talked about serving. Sometimes I found that some relationships served me or didn't serve me as well throughout a period. Is that something that kind of you find too? Relationships is a subject that comes up so often, and it's not about using or kind of people being at your disposal, but actually there are some relationships that don't serve now that may have done previously, and there's a lot of guilt with that. How have you kind of maneuvered through relationships?
Not very well, Stacey, sometimes, if I'm honest. Relationships have always been a weird one. I would definitely say through active addiction, I was codependent. You know, I needed somebody else that wouldn't challenge us and would accept my irrational behaviour. And I, you know, some of my relationships did, and they lasted longer than some of the relationships that didn't and didn't last as long. But what I would say, I was also very manipulative through active addiction. So what I perceived to be, I wasn't, you know, and that was hard for people. And then the truth would come out a little bit, and you know, and the truth would come out a little bit, and then the snowball would start growing and growing and growing until it got to a point where the relationship wouldn't last anymore. As I got into recovery, I was told you have to go make an amends. You have to make an amends. So if I'm honest, I became a bit of a doormat for people in early recovery. And I tried to do everything I possibly could to help support, build relationships for a period of time, and then would get resentful at the fact I was trying to do stuff and people wouldn't see Richie had changed and see Richie had, you know, made progress. But actually they still had what we call as the old map of Richie. They still had all the hurt and the pain that had been caused by my destructive behaviour. So why should they change overnight? Why should they change in a 3-month, 6-month, 3-year period? I just had to accept that some people, it would take longer than others, and that's okay. All I had to do is try to keep doing the best I could. And that didn't always happen. You know, that didn't always happen. I hold my hands up, and a few relationships didn't work out in my recovery, and that's sad that they didn't, because we've been through a lot together, but that's part of life, I think. You know, relationships I have today are very different. You know, the way I communicate is very different. The way I show up is very different. I'm much more vulnerable. You know, assumption is something that I try and avoid at all costs, and try and be as open and honest as I can. But it's hard. It's not always easy. Yeah. You know, relationships are a hard thing to have. And I'm not just talking about relationships with, you know, an intimate partner or anything. I'm just talking about relationships in general. Yeah, so my relationships with my parents, my friends, my kids, my ex-partner, the mother of my kids, you know, new relationships potentially you move into in recovery, then they're all difficult in their own little way. But all I've got to remember to do is to keep showing up as me. And if I can show up as me and be authentic and be honest and sometimes be vulnerable, then any relationship I get myself into has got a chance. You know, and I think that's the thing that I've learned from being involved with like my close group of friends. My close group of friends like to say, we're honest. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's so much honesty there that the relationship's so much stronger for that. You know, and like I said, people will call you out on your bullshit. People will be there to support you. You know, and when I shared where I was last week or something, there's a lot of people said, who helps the helper? Who helps the carer? You know, so they see me as that figure who's been the one there to support everybody. And it was nice that they were there, and they were now taking an interest in trying to support me and help me and stuff as well. So for me, it's a strong support network, which is so valuable and so important. But that can come in many different ways, shapes, forms, sizes, appearances.
Found your tribe.
Yeah, I think it's important, isn't it? You've got to find your tribe. And I'll also say that's my tribe at this moment in time. You know, that's the tribe that's serving me now. And you said before, how do different relationships serve you at different times? Them relationships are serving me now. So I want to be a part of them. I want to lean into them and, you know, be as involved as I can to support them. as much as get support from them. One of my other big values that I speak about all the time is help other people to help myself. And doing the job that I do, I get to help lots of people, but I also get to help people in other ways as well, you know. So, selfishly, it helps me, and that's it's okay to say selfishly because it's not selfish. Do you know what I mean? And
positively selfish.
Yeah, and it's different to being selfish in active addiction, where it was just me. Now it's about how can I support other people, because I know by supporting other people and seeing their progress, I feel good about myself, and that helps my confidence, that helps my self-worth, that helps my self-esteem, you know, and yeah, makes me feel a bit better about myself. And I also, you know, every time that I want to try and help somebody, so in recovery, one of my friends' little brother, he died by suicide, and after that, his mum had said, was like, Richie, you've got a powerful story, you know, you can offer hope and inspiration to other people, so you really need to go and use that. And that's the thing that always, you know, gets me through the tough times, is going, well, if I can help one person, if what I say, what I share by doing the podcast, by doing the work that I do, just helps that one person, then it's worth it, you know. And if that's my purpose in life, if that's my, you know, mission in life, is just to go and help that one person, then, you know, that can be a measure of success as well, I think.
And I think you've helped many, many more than one. You have a huge impact on so many people. You genuinely do. So thank you for sharing, and keep doing it, because you have an impact on every single person that comes through the foundation, because so much of it is you. We might not even never meet them, but the impact you have on them is profound. And I mean that from the sincerest place in me. It really is. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I think on that, Stacey, what I would say is I really struggled to comprehend how that would happen. So I always had a thought, if I want to help people, I need to be on the front line. I need to be there face to face, me and you, me supporting you. And that's how I would get to benefit other people. But actually what I've now realized is, by creating a podcast, you don't know who you're helping. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many more people. By creating an event, by creating the program that we've created, like, it's not just helping the people directly that we're helping, but there's a massive ripple effect, you know. So that one person that we support in recovery, if their addiction has affected 10 people or more, why can't their recovery? You know, so just by helping that one individual learn to manage their emotions better, can have a profound effect on everybody else in their life. And that took a long time for me to comprehend that, you know, the ripple effect of what we do is massively important as well. But, you know, it can go out so much further than just that one person that sits in front of you. And also by having a bigger impact, or having an impact at a higher level or a more senior level within an organization, can dictate where we go, you know. And that for me is massively important to me now as well, is that strategically we move in the right directions so that we can continue to have impact. We continue to support the people that we're supposed to be supporting, and we listen to them. Yeah. And, you know, we take on board what they say, and we take on board their feedback, so that we can just continually improve. And I love that, you know. For me, recovery is about being a better version of myself, you know. By working in the sector that I work in, if I can continue to be a better version of myself, I can continually, hopefully, make Epic Restart Foundation a better version of itself, and then all the staff that work with us, hopefully inspire and give hope to them that they can be a better version of themselves as well. Yeah, and then that ripples down to all the people that we support.
Of course, we see it in our mentoring. I mean, as every kind of charity or organisation in the world will have, is specific training and lots of slides, and we do all that stuff to make sure that we're keeping people safe and doing what we need to do. But honestly, and I think we will all agree, me, Joe, Steve, Mark, I've learned so much just from conversations with you that we then take into our mentoring sessions, which has made me such a better mentor, honestly. If you were with me early on, I'm sorry. But again, that's that impact, that's that growing, that's other people benefiting from it. And then you'll ask me a question like, oh, I'm using that, I'm going to use that, and then someone else might use it, and it continues and continues. It's absolutely huge. And just to know that maybe your awareness of that is even growing a little bit, to say, do you know what, I'm doing good. It's like you said, it's uncomfortable, but it's so true, and it is spread so widely now, and that's from, I know certainly the people I work with, that a lot of that comes from you are, and I know it was an important thing to you, is to teach. You love learning, and you love to teach, and I've learned so much from you. It's immeasurable. It really, really is. The people I work with benefit from you doing that for me every single day.
Thanks. Really uncomfortable.
Moving on.
Yeah, and what I would say on that is I do love to teach.
Yeah.
But for me, the most important thing about teaching is being teachable and as being the student. So my value, be the student before the teacher. That's so important to me, because if I'm not continually learning, what I end up teaching isn't relevant. Yeah. It's out of date. You know what I mean? So be open to learning. And what I've got to be careful of, like I said earlier, though, is that learning doesn't become avoidance. Yeah. So learn to teach, don't learn to avoid. You know, and the other thing about teaching for me is to learn something is to learn something. To learn something to teach it is a whole new level. You know, so you've got to break it down, you've got to understand it in a much greater depth, you've got to really know how it can impact people so that you can go and teach it, because teaching, anything can come up when you're teaching. You know, and you've got to be able to try and facilitate a conversation that helps somebody move forward, no matter what they present. And sometimes you've got to hold your hands up and say, I don't know, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go and try and find out for you. Yeah. Or we can work together to find out the answer. And I think that's the importance of facilitation and coaching and asking the right questions, is ask really good questions. People come up with much better answers for themselves.
And I'm interested, you've worked with a lot of people in recovery now, specifically gambling harm. What have you learned? Maybe what are some common things that you see, and what have you learned from kind of that journey?
Trying to put this in the best possible way, I think not everybody, a lot of people that I've worked with, when they come into recovery, they have a preconceived idea of what got them into recovery, why they were gambling or why they were addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever. But especially around gambling, I find a lot of people come in with a preconceived idea that this is why I was gambling. But through facilitating conversations with them, asking them the right questions, you kind of strip back the layers of the onion, you know, and I use that analogy all the time. And once you start asking better questions of people, they start answering themselves more honestly and openly. And what you find is actually people are avoiding feelings, emotions, there's trauma, there's, you know, underlying issues to why they gambled. And it's not about gambling. It's not about addictive machines. It's not about chasing money. It's not about all of them things that some people will see gambling being about. And it's about actually individuals dealing with life on life's terms. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is if I ask somebody enough questions, it normally takes 5 or 6 questions, if I'm honest. So it's not even loads of questions, but in 5 or 6 questions, I can generally get to somebody going, fuck, that's why, light bulb moment, you know, and for me, that's the magic, you know, that's the magic of them having the awareness now and the understanding to go and do the work around that. You know, and that work might mean that they now need to go back into therapy. It might need to now go and do some CBT. It might need to then want to go and speak to a psychologist. It might be that they just want to go and do some inner, deeper work on themselves and go and work with a coach. You know, what I really, really encourage everybody is multiple pathways to recovery. There's so many different ways to recover, and people have to have options and autonomy. And I think if you give people autonomy in their recovery, they have a chance. If you try and dictate which way they need to go, they'll build resistance to it, and it won't last long term anyway. So raise awareness, build autonomy, give people the confidence to take the next step, and they've got a chance.
Yeah. It's just that, again, that awareness, isn't it? Oh shit, that moment, this is something I still struggle with. This is something that, okay, where's it? And then what do I do next? All about that action, always about the action. What do you find? Legacy harm is something that we obviously kind of work with in terms of the things that don't stop hurting once you've stopped gambling.
Yeah,
do you experience that?
Oh, do I experience? So legacy harm itself, it's a quirky term, and people that aren't in the gambling harm space probably go, "What the fuck's legacy harm?" You know. But for me, legacy harm is about the things that don't repair overnight. So when I stopped gambling, when I stopped taking drugs, when I stopped using alcohol, there were still so many things that weren't going to repair overnight. You know, 6 years I've been in recovery. I still struggle to get credit, you know, still kind of get a car and finance, still kind of do anything to do with credit. Like my credit shot to pieces. It'll slowly improve now. You know, I'm in a position where it'll slowly improve, but it'll not happen overnight. So that has a massive effect. You know, I can't get a mortgage. I can't, you know, drive around in a nice car. And I know that's not important, but it's just another indicator that there's still harm, basically. And the other thing for me is something that probably took me into active addiction was lack of self-worth and confidence. And you mentioned earlier, everybody says Richie is, you know, having his shit together, let's say. But actually confidence and self-worth, something that still to this day, I can have so much self-doubt. So much self-doubt about stuff. And I honestly sit here sometimes, not here in general, but sit here in life and go, blagging this well, Richie, aren't you? You're blagging this. And what I've had to do is build the proof, build the evidence, build, you know, the journaling and write stuff down and find all the evidence that actually I am doing all right. But there's still days where it just doesn't hit home, just doesn't sink in. You know, I can read as many journals as I want, but I'll still feel like a piece of shit. I'll still feel worthless. I'll still find a reason that I am worthless. I'll still find a reason that, you know, I'm not confident. One of the biggest things I've learned, though, is it'll pass. Yeah. That feeling will pass. And in that moment, if I can change my physiology, if I can change my environment, or if I can put my head on the pillow and go to sleep, after one of them three things, or all of them three things, I'll feel better. You know, and that's been massively... And I don't always feel better, Stacey, that's the truth. But I have to have the belief that if I do one of them three things, I will feel better after it. You know, so, and that's action, isn't it? That's taking action. Whatever it looks like. It's not acting out, it's just taking action. And if I can do that, then hopefully the inner critic of Richie gets some self-compassion and I can be a bit kinder to myself and I can move forward. But there's so many times in my recovery where self-worth's been knocked, you know, confidence has been knocked. But one thing I have learned is if I don't have the courage, I'll always be the same. So it's not confidence that I need, it's courage. And through a lot of the work that I've done, I've now had the courage to step into new roles at work, step into new relationships, step into new, you know, situations that scare us, take on new challenges, do stuff that I wouldn't normally have done, but actually just have the courage, and most of the time it works out all right.
It was the first time I heard you say that a few weeks ago, and it hit me so hard. And like, it makes absolute sense. We talk about confidence all the time, and how are you ever going to be confident at doing something if you don't have the courage to try it in the first place? And it's helped me a lot, even over this past few weeks, because I've had a shitty time myself, like, and that's what I was really hoping to get out of this, which has shown so much, is that just because somebody appears, we look to you, you're our kind of the lead in what we do, you're the person I ring 500 times a day for different things, but you're human, and you know what, sometimes it's hard, even as far along, no matter what job you've got, sometimes it feels difficult, but even having the courage to say, feel a bit shit, then you have the confidence to go on and put something in place about it and do something about it. And it's just so nice to know, do you know what, I'm a little bit further behind in my recovery than you. And when I'm 6 years in, I might still feel shit, but I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, do you know, and like, I don't think there'll be a time in my life where I might not feel shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, that throughout life, what's life going to throw at you? God, there's so much stuff that life's going to throw at us that'll probably knock us a little bit. But I have a different belief system now, and my belief system now is whatever you throw at us, I'll get through it. You know, I'll not run away. I'll not bury my head in the sand. I'll face it head on. Maybe it's after a little bit of procrastination, but I'll face it head on, and then hopefully I'll overcome it, and we'll move on to the next day.
Yeah. And what are your 3 to 5 things in your toolbox? You mentioned kind of going to sleep and stuff, but as at the stage you are now, what are the things that help you through the hard days?
So the biggest thing for me in my toolbox is knowing what my values are. So working out what your values are, you know, so I have 5 values, and most things I do in life, I can tie back to my values. When life's difficult and I'll really look at life, it's because I'm not living by my values, and they're not aligned. You know, there's friction between who I want to be and who I actually am in that moment. And that's really important for me. So tool number 1, work out what your values are and align your life to them values. And then you'll have less friction. You'll have less pain. You'll have less discomfort, because that's who you want to be, basically. And if that's who you are and that's who you're aligned with, then, you know, life's a little bit easier. So that's definitely the first most important thing for me, is knowing what my values are. I'm that sad that I've actually got my 5 values are in frames on my bedroom wall. And as I step out my bed, it's the first thing I say every day.
It's not live, laugh, love,
You know.
is it?
No, it's definitely not. But it's important to us. It's because it's that constant reminder. When I wake up in the morning, I open my eyes and I look and I step out of bed. This is who I want to be today. This is who I want to be every day. You know, and it subconsciously, it's there before I even have to think, do anything, say anything, write anything, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's definitely tool number 1 for me is values. And if anybody who doesn't know what their values are and wants to work out what their values are, the thing that helped me massively was a book called The Values Factor by Dr. John D. Martini. So if you've never read it and you want to work out your values, go and read that book, and it'll massively change your perception of what values should be. Because, I mean, when I first started, values were like honesty, kindness, like, and they're fine values to have, but they're a bit fucking wishy-washy, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't mean all that much. So it was, definitely go and find out what your values are. I think the second thing for me that's massively important in my life is passion and purpose. So once I knew what my values were, I needed to know where my passion and my purpose was going to come from in life. And this doesn't have to be around work. So I found that I was really passionate about playing golf. So that was really important for me, that I found a hobby or, you know, an activity that I was passionate about. I'm passionate about playing golf. I'm passionate about climbing, being in the mountains, being in the countryside. So I just love them things. Passionate about getting in the sea. So the benefit I get from going in the sea is massively a positive for me in my recovery. So they're things that the golf, the sea, and the mountains, you know, find time for them in my life. If I find time for them in my life's probably going to be better. You know, one of my values, do things that make you smile. Them 3 things make you smile. You know, so again, I can tie all of my toolkit things back to my values, but the values have to sit at the front. So passion and purpose, hobbies, just try stuff, go and try stuff. And then number 3 for me is connection and relationships. And it's one of our pillars at Epic Restart Foundation because it's so important, you know. And I think connection and relationships for me are, you know, I was once told if you're doing it on your own, you might do it well. If you're doing it with other people, you'll go far, you know. So, and that was the thing for me. And the other saying is, if you're doing it on your own, you're doing it wrong. I don't know if that's right, because there's some things I can do on my own that I do very well, but it still sticks in my head that actually when I'm struggling or when I'm not in the best place, it's probably because I need to be with other people or around other people. So go and find your tribe. Like you said before, I found my tribe. I have for now. It doesn't always mean it'll be exactly the same all the time, but I've found people that I can rely on, trust, be open to. And do you know what it is more than anything that I get from that group of people that I've probably never had in the past is I feel heard. And I think this is so important in life today that everybody talks about. You need to talk more, you need to open up more, you need to be vulnerable, you need to share, you need to be honest. But if there's no one to listen to you, it's a waste of fucking time. Yeah. And all you have to have is 1 or 2 bad experiences of people shutting you down, you know, talking over the top of you and not listening to what you're saying, being judgmental, that you go, fuck that, I'm not doing that anymore. And you shut down completely and you go inwards, you know. So a connection is important, but connection with people who make you feel heard is so, so, so important, you know. And the first people that made me feel heard were my therapists in rehab. That then gave me confidence in therapists. So then I had other therapists. I then had some good coaches, which heard us, listened to us, and helped us move forward. And then I found friends that can hold space, you know, and there's a few of them that hold space really well for us. You know, Josh, who we work with in our program. Yeah. Josh is somebody now who, like, I look to and go, he can really hold space for me if I need it. You know, don't ring him that often, don't speak to him that often, but he's there, you know, and that for me is true friendship. You know, you like Craig and Trevor, who've been on this podcast. They're 2 really close friends who, if I ring them, they'll listen. You know, they don't want to speak. They don't want to give us advice. They don't want to tell us what I have to do. They just listen. And I think that's so important. So connection and relationships, but more than anything, somewhere where you feel heard. And I think they would be my tools in my toolbox now and probably for the rest of my life.
I love that. And I think that all so important. And it all comes down to, like you say, going to sleep and knowing that you've achieved your overall, which I know is to be the best version of you. Am I doing everything I can to be that person? And you absolutely are. So yeah,
some days.
Most days. Some days.
And do you know what it is? And the days that I'm not, I'm okay with that. Because like you said, I'm human, you know. And today's it's another chance. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you from every listener, I'm absolutely sure, for putting this on and giving us a space to be heard without even needing to say it. That's what this space does, is someone will bring something up that they've struggled to say out loud somewhere and they hear someone else say it and they feel heard because they're being answered. This is incredibly powerful. It's because of you. So thank you. Thank you massively.
Thanks, Stacey. Thanks for listening to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. If you took something positive from it, then why not subscribe? If you or somebody you know has been suffering gambling-related harm, why not head over to our website where you can join our community? The link is in the show notes.